Hello and welcome to the Musical Instrument Investigator. Today we're on the website of Brompton's auctions based in the UK, and we're going to have a look at their latest auction, which is the general sale. So Brompton's usually have a couple of types of auctions. They have a general sale, which is kind of lower level stuff, and they also have a specialist or fine sale, which is usually the higher end stuff. So this is the general sale. Now it's the 11th of May today, and this auction is finishing tomorrow on the 12th, so I'm a bit late with this video. I do apologise. Been super busy, but I'm here now, so I'll do my best. The buyer's premium on this auction is 20%, so that's the amount that you pay on top of the final hammer price. However, Brompton's, a bit like Terezio, do this kind of first in last out thing. So if you're the first to bid and end up winning it, then you get 2% off the buyer's premium, which can be quite handy if you're buying something of quite a high value. So now there's quite a lot of stuff in this auction, of 380 lots. I really need to speed through this really, because it's going to be boring for people, and also it's going to take forever to upload, and it probably won't upload until the auction's finished if I try and look at everything. So I'm going to speed through. I'm going to miss over some things, going to just have to miss some bits unfortunately, but I will do my best. Once again, just to say, this is a UK based auction, so if you're looking to purchase and you're outside of the UK, if you're in the EU or international, bear in mind kind of import export kind of fees, shipping, all of that stuff, CITES restrictions, all of that fun. So without further ado, let's just crack on. So we'll go through it, but some things I will just kind of go over pretty quickly. Bows we may not cover so much, so I might just have to go past in case there's something really interesting. We'll stop by, but otherwise I think we are just gonna whiz by. Okay, if we see anything decent, we're gonna stop, but just so that everyone can see the pictures and the lot numbers. I always mention Jan Kudanowski if there's a bow by him. I wonder if this is I think we saw one in one of the previous Brompton's auctions, but Jan Kudanowski is like a fantastic guy, a real character, definitely worth meeting if you get a chance. Really good kind of maker of bows and also violins, so always nice to see some of his work around. JTL bow there. If we see anything really kind of curious, then we will stop. Unfortunately, because we've got so many lots in this auction, we're just going to have to blitz through. Let's have a look at this. A French nickel mounted violin bow, possibly workshop of Malines. Stick with repaired and bound break. Frog and cracks, missing ebony. Okay, interesting. So it's had a bit of a repair, but still got a high asking price there, 3,000 to 4,000. So it just shows you the value of bows is increasing. No bids on it so far, then there's an indication about the buyer's premium if you're the first to bid. Right, always like to look at a few kind of hill bows here. So it's an English gold and tortoiseshell mounted violin bow by W.E. Hill and Sons with the fleur-de-lis. So this is the real kind of interesting bow, usually reserved for their kind of finest level bows, the tortoiseshell and the gold fleur-de-lis. But it's got a pinned head, so it's had, you can kind of just about see the pins at the top there, so it's had a serious repair. Stick very good, aside from well repaired break to the head, which is pinned. Handle somewhere. Frog very good. Evidence of some damage around ferrule. Tongue may have been broken off and well repaired, though more likely repaired, damaged on player's side only. I mean, this is quite interesting. It's got current bids of 600, so if bows are repaired really well, that they can still play like as they did before. I mean, obviously it'd be wise to try this bow you know, in person. It looks a little bit weird at the head, like it's kind of lost a bit of material or something. It looks a little bit strange, but yeah, just a note that kind of a well repaired bow, you can get it pretty good deal on it, and sometimes they can play just as well. So like I said, historically I think the tortoiseshell and gold mounted hill bows are like the top level bow, so interesting to see that. Vigneron bow there. Actually, let's have a quick look at that. French silver mounted violin bow, probably workshop of Charles Nicolas Bazin after Jean-Joseph Martin. 3,500 to 4,500 there. Stick turning over badly behind the head. Thick varnish behind the head. I feel like we might have seen this bow before because that description sounds quite familiar, but it's quite an expensive, it's quite a high estimate for a bow which potentially has a pretty bad flaw on it, so that's kind of curious. But we must endeavour on, sadly, because we just don't have time to look at everything. But I do like the layout of Brompton's, that I can just do the next lot and we can see all of the information and all the pictures really quickly. Everything loads up really quickly, a lot quicker than Teresio. These are interesting, these English silver-mounted split cane bows by Lawrence Cocker. I think also potentially his wife made some of these bows as well. You do see them around. This was a kind of an earlier thought to kind of save on Pernambuco, I think. So interesting. You do see these around every now and then. I think some of them are meant to play pretty well, but I've never tried one. I've seen a few in person. We'll just carry on. So many lots in this auction. We just can't look at everything. Silver mounted violin bow, probably English, made for Beer and Sons. 600 to 1,000. Stick good with some very minor wear to head plate. Frog good with very minor wear. I feel like the condition on Brompton's, the condition reports are getting more honest. I don't know. The last kind of few years they seem to be getting a bit better. Maybe it's just my imagination. Let's see. Right, we're on to instruments here. This looks familiar. An interesting violin attributed to Alessandro di Spin, first half of the 19th century, 7 to 10, 362 length of back. This looks like something that we might have seen before. Could be wrong. Modern Italian, we're going to go past this for the moment. Same as this. This is something I wanted to look at actually, because I've looked at this catalogue already. I quite like this violin, a violin circa 1920, length of back 357. Interesting work to the scroll. Interesting choice of, I mean, it's like a bit plain, but I quite like it. I like the back. I think this is quite a nice back, and I like the general workmanship. It's a little bit asymmetrical in a few places, but I quite like this violin. I don't know why, but there's something about that I quite like. Maybe be a bit kind of pale in the varnish, but I quite like it. Fairly slender F-holes. Good violin after Charles Francois Agand. It's always popular, these kind of violins. 359 length of back, so just about on the good side there. Can request condition reports, of course, as well. We're going to skip that. We'll skip this one as well. There's loads of English violins in this auction, kind of like lower level or lower value ones. Some of them are really interesting, definitely worth looking at, but I think just for the sake of time we're going to have to skip through. There's another one there. It's a very standard French violin. Let's have a look at this violin attributed to Giuseppe Pedrozzini. 5 to 8. It's not really doing anything for me, I must be honest, but to someone it is. Good violin, South Germany, second half of the 18th century. Starting bids of 2. Interesting scroll there. 353 length of back. Quite like the varnish on that. Unfortunate brick repair there at the back. But otherwise, I quite like this scroll. It's quite nice. Italian violin by Guerriero Spataffi, Gubbio, 1989. Probably got all of that completely wrong. This is new. I don't think we've seen this before. 1800 to 2200. Looks in really good condition there. Once again, not really my type of thing. Hop violin, I think we've seen that a few times. This was kind of a curious one. An Italian violin by Tayboon Lay, Cremona, 1975. So 353 length of back. That's quite nice. You know, I guess this is possibly an easy way to get a cheap Cremonese violin. Very plain looking kind of woods. It looks kind of well made, looks okay, just not very exciting, unfortunately. So a bit plain. Interesting violin, possibly French. Nice scroll. Interesting kind of cut of the F holes there. 354, that's a reasonable size. Quite a nice choice of wood on the back. Little kind of brand on the back there. That's fairly nice. We'll go past that. An interesting violin circa 1800. This, well, as you probably tell by now, interesting is probably my favourite word as well, but it's definitely Brompton's favourite word way before I started using it. 355. This looks like very much like a Hop family, like Klingenthal type of instrument to me, in my opinion anyway, but yeah, I quite like it. It's got some charm. Another one of these English violins. Like I said, there's lots of them in this auction. Not to say anything against them, they're all good. Let's go past this. Going to go past these modern Italian stuff. So let's have a look at this actually. Contemporary violin by Adalberto Barani, Budapest 2022. That's interesting. I haven't seen like a modern Hungarian violin, I think, in an auction, or this new, as in within the last year or two, for a while. Has the certificate for the maker 352. No bid so far. It's really quite odd looking model and kind of slightly strange F-hole cut on that. Speaking of Jan Kudanowski, got an English violin here. 1800 to 2200. Curious scroll. I think we might have seen this before as well. Quite nice, fairly neat kind of work there. German violin by Karl August Neumarker, Schoneck, 1815. No bids on this so far. This is a curious looking one. These lower corners really pointing upwards. It's almost looks a bit like, I don't know, it reminds me of like a vampire or something. It looks kind of a little bit demonic. It's inked purfling on this one. 355, quite a cute little scroll. Yeah, this I quite like. It's for the oddity factor. Be quite well. It's in Baroque. It's got a Baroque setup already, isn't it? So yeah, I think that's quite nice. Quite like that. We'll go past that. English violin circa 1820. No bids on that. It's taken a bit of a bash at the scroll. Had some repairs to it. French violin. We'll just go past this so far. And that one. Keep on going. Okay, this is interesting. A violin attributed to Carlo Carletti, Pieve di Cento, circa 1900. Some of these we might have seen before. I do kind of forget because we see so many. I definitely don't have a photographic memory, sadly. But this is an interesting looking violin. It's got a Storioni label 5 to 8. No bids on it so far. Another, so possibly Tyrolean violin. It's quite nice, 2.5 to 3.5. No bids on it so far. Had a bit of worm, a few issues going on, but quite like that scroll. Nice. German violin attributed to Albert Knorr, Mucknikirk in 1906. This is an interesting violin. 2 to 3. Curious choice of wood for the top, with that grain run out at the side. Slightly odd choice. Nice back. Okay. We'll go past that. Let's have a look at this. Good violin, possibly workshop with Giovanni Battista Marassi, Cremona, 1970. Length the back 356. We're ignoring a lot of French violins at the moment, I have to admit. Here's a load of English ones we're going to ignore as well. Let's have a look at a possibly or probably French violin circa 1820. Looks like it's quite long, 362. Okay, current bid 400, it's not too bad. Another English violin here, like I said, there's lots of them there. Just a generic A violin. Let's carry on. A composite Dutch violin, Hendrik Jacobs, and later Amsterdam, circa 1690, 5-6. So it's almost quite a lot in a way for a composite that's a little bit unknown, although good Dutch violins are worth quite a lot. So, and a Jacobs would be one of those. So, kind of curious. Here is one of the modern makers, which seems to appear a lot on Brompton's, Dario Aguzzi, 3-5. The estimate there, current bid 2.6. I do quite like this work. It's kind of it's got an interesting charm to it. Half-size Italian violin, probably by Lorenzo Ventapane, Naples, took 1840, 2.5 to 3.5 there. You'd have to be really have a super child or something prodigy to want to buy this, or just really like collecting fractional violins. I think it's quite a lot of money. Going past this one, it's another German violin, Klingenthal, circa 1780, estimates 1500 to 2000, 1200 bid on that. Yeah, it's an interesting scroll and just curious in general. Really nice back on that, actually. Reminds me of some English violins, the back on that. Yeah, that's quite nice. Another English violin there. Violin attributed to Leandro Biziak. Nice scroll. Definitely has some interesting workmanship to it. 3.2, the current bid, so it's popular. Here's a violin that I quite like, actually. A violin possibly English, circa 1800. This has been around for a few auctions now, so it looks like someone's finally bid on it. I quite like this. It just really reminds me a lot of the work of Thomas Cahusac. The scroll, I think, is quite crazy and is potentially something different, but yeah, really interesting violin that. Lots of other English violins here. Some more French stuff. Let's keep going for now. An interesting violin, possibly Italian, circa 1760, 3-5 on that, labelled Thomas Balistieri. Length of back 365. Wow, that's pretty long. Cool scroll. Interesting varnish and F holes there. Nice back. Yeah, it's interesting, but very long length of back on that. Actually, let's have a look at this one. A violin by Frankie and Hoyer, 2011. Sold with certificate of the maker. Colour of the varnish is interesting there. 2.5 to 4. 2000 starting bid. Let's carry on. A lot of these I think we might have seen before. This is a curious one. An interesting composite violin, possibly workshop of Edward Pamphilon, second half of the 17th century, 1800 to 2200. You got 1500 on that. Later scroll and table. Let's carry on for now. Let's have a look at a miracle violin so that people don't get upset that I'm ignoring all the French violins. So we've got a French violin by Léon Poisson, Mircore 1907. 360 length of back. Another violin from the Tyrol there, as they're saying. Looks like it's had a bit of work done to it, but that's quite curious. Current bid 900, but no reserve not met. Another English violin from Ealing Strings. They seem to have churned out quite a lot of instruments over the years for different makers. Let's carry on. Another modern Italian there. Let's see what else we got here. Could be a bit ruthless because we got so much stuff to go through. Right, we're on to some bows again. Looks to be viola bows now. See if there's anything interesting. A good German silver-mounted viola bow by Gottfried Sturm. Stick good with small grain lift repaired to crown head. Handle with significant wear at thumb. Frog good with considerable wear at front of thumb projection. Okay, an English silver-mounted violin viola bow by George Darby, 700 to 1000. So it must be right on the kind of crossover of dimensions there. Another one of these split cane bows, but a viola. Right, we're on to violas now. An Italian viola attributed to and possibly by Natale Novelli, Milan, circa 1970. Starting bids of 5. 422. It's a kind of good, big, modern size. Got an interesting English viola there. Another interesting one there. English viola by Ronald William Prail, London, 1986, 2 to 3. No bids on that. Looks kind of nice enough, if not especially exciting. This is quite interesting. An English Baroque viola by Tom Wilson, Cambridge, 1994. Quite curious. Looks like it doesn't have much in the way of varnish, but I quite like the size of it and the general outline. I think that's pretty cool. Right, a viola, possibly Low Country, circa 1800, 2 to 3. Cool scroll on that. We obviously can't see any of the side profiles, so we don't know what the arching's like. But 393, just get on the smaller side, I guess. German viola there. Another English viola. This one's pretty curious. English viola by Martin Godleman, London, 1980, 2 to 3. Those are pretty huge F-holes there. Definitely a curious one. 420, good kind of modern size. Another English viola there. Quite a few violas here. Another Colin Wills, interesting model. Yeah, good choice of violas, that's always good. Another English one there. Oh, it's English, not English, a German viola, and the Difu Pruger kind of ones. Current bid 420. Yeah, these interesting looking things. A French viola by Nicolas Vizinaire, Lyon, 1870, 2 to 3000. 376, that's very small. That's quite nice. Viola, probably English, 19th century, 1200 to 1800. Length about 401. Yeah, quite like that. Repairs to back button and scroll. Yeah, that's quite nice. Some bows here, some cello bows. Cello bow by a member of the Dodd family. Stamped Forster, that's interesting. Once again, we're just going to have to blitz through this, unfortunately, just because we've got so many things to look at. Silver mounted cello bow attributed to James Tubbs. Okay. Really quite an interesting auction. There's another split cane bow there, but a cello, so we've got violin, viola and cello there. Oh, we've got another Jan Kudanowski bow here, so a cello bow, 1,000 to 1,200, 900 bid on that. I mean, I reckon that'd be a pretty good bow. Get it for a decent price. Not small bows. Contemporary Baroque bow, 3 to 500. I assume that this is probably a Chinese bow. Looks like the ones you get. Right, we're on to cellos there. An Italian cello by Leonardo Rossi, Rome 2022. So a modern cello there. Current bid 4.5. A cello, okay. No further information. 2 to 4. It's pretty wide body there. Interesting looking thing. Cello, possibly Italian, circa 1870. That's pretty bizarre. An Italian cello of cornerless outline by Carlo Leveri, Naples, circa 1870. Pretty bonkers shape that. Not sure how popular that is going to be. Oh, an interesting cello. 2 to 4. Another cello there. Pretty much the same outline as the one that we saw earlier. Okay, splitting through. Another interesting cello, circa 1850, 4 to 6 on that. This looks like curious scroll. 4 to 6. The varnish probably altered. Yeah, I quite like that. It's got some curious bits to it. Cello probably German, circa 1800. It's another curious looking one. 3 to 5. No bids on this so far. Interesting wood choice. An Italian cello by Luigi Cavallini, Arezzo, circa 1870, 6 to 8. 6,000 on that. Quite nice. Back. Okay. An English cello by Lockie Hill, London, circa 1790, 4 to 6 on that. 5,000 the current bid. That's a nice looking cello. I like that. I do like the English cellos. That is a pretty bad crack on the back. So I was thinking this seems pretty cheap for a Lockie Hill cello. Repairs to tables, ribs and back. Soundpost cracking table and back, both with patches. So pretty serious damage to that. But still 5,000 on that the bid. So yeah, quite like it though. Nice looking. Do like the Lockie Hill cellos, are quite nice. Italian cello by Luigi Ercoli, Pistoia 2014. Our good friend Luigi Ercoli that we see in all of these auctions. That's quite a nice wood for the back. 7 to 10 the estimate. We're on 6 so far. Another Rossi cello there. Quite a lot of cellos as well. Double bass. Fairly standard double bass, that one. Right, on to some more interesting instruments. An Italian guitar by Gennaro Fabbricatore, Naples, circa 1820. I think we've seen this before, and it's not sold. 6 to 8, I think 5,000 starting. I think that's not too bad. It's a nice example of a Fabbricatore. It's obviously had some issues, but I think that's quite a good not a bad price for a really fine, very early romantic guitar by one of the most regarded makers of that kind of time. I think that's pretty good. Classical guitar by Manuel Adalid Valencia, 2015, 600 to 1,000, 500 to start. It's probably actually a really nice classical guitar there, so potentially a good bargain there for someone. This we've definitely seen before, an Italian guitar by Raphael and Antonio Galliano, Naples, circa 1830. Estimates 3 to 4, starting with 2.5. One way to get a Galliano pretty cheap is buy a guitar rather than a violin. Quite nice work on the neck. Yeah, I think that's quite nice. It's obviously had some work done to it, but I think that's not unreasonable price, to be honest. Child's guitar, possibly French, circa 1870. It's had a bit of a chunk out of the headstock there. I don't think this is anything too exciting. $250 is probably the maximum you want to pay. Italian classical guitar by Raphael Callas and Sons. This is pretty kind of low quality, I think, to be honest. This is quite interesting. An Italian bowlback bass mandolin attributed to Giacomo Antonio Rossetti, 1596. It's interesting. It's had a lot of the worm has been eating that. It's in pretty bad condition, but interesting historical interest. Italian bowlback mandolin by Gennaro and Achille Vinaccia, Naples, 1890. That's one of the names you want to look out for a mandolin is Vinaccia. Not the most exciting example, to be honest, hence the low estimate. Another bowlback mandolin, Naples. These you get these all the time. Don't think that's anything particularly special, to be honest. Good old gorge case, always popular. Very heavy, but very popular. Interesting double case there. Another gorge case. Got some books here. I think we'll just go past these unless there's anything really super interesting, because we'll be interesting. A boxwood flute by Whitaker of London. No bids on that. More books here. Quite a lot of books in this. They don't tend to do too many books, Bromptons, from what I recall, but they seem to be doing a fair amount of books in this auction. English concertina, well, you got to 400 on that, so someone likes another concertina there, so someone's interested in those. Print at Withers Workshop, interesting. No bids on that. Flute by Ronald Cart and Co. Some more bows here. Once again, we'll just speed through this unless we see anything really interesting. Silver mounted violin bow, possibly by James Tubbs. Current bid £50. Wow. Yep. It's had a big old repair there. Stick with grafting, wood to head and binding. Frog with cracks and missing ebony. Later silver button. In a bit of a state, but could probably be restored a bit better, I would say. Could end up being an okay playing bow. Never going to be worth too much, I wouldn't have thought. Let's keep on going if it lets us. The internet has decided that it doesn't want to continue anymore, so that's good. Let's go. We're on the go slow for some reason. I'm not quite sure what's happening here, but it does not want us to carry on at the moment, so let's see what's going on. German silver mounted violin bow though, 500 to 800. Stick very good. Frog with significant cracks and repairs. Okay, let's see if we are able to move on. If not, maybe we shall pause it for a bit. Okay, let's carry on. Hopefully the internet has decided to work again. Looks like it's going okay, so that's nice. Swiss silver mounted violin bow by the Finkel Workshop. I quite like the Finkel bows. I think they're just Very straightforward. They do the job. I think they're quite reliable, and the model ones like fairly good value. Looks like the images, nothing's really loading properly at the moment. I'm not 100% sure what's going on, but this is an interesting bow. An English silver and ivory mounted violin bow by William Watson for W.E. Hills and Sons, 1800 to 2200. Good throughout, minor wear. That's quite nice. Sighties on this one. So, yep, I think that's quite a nice looking bow. Another Lawrence Cocker bow there. Lots of them are about. I mean, I think, £50 starting with. Stick appears to have surface damage from moisture. Camber is in poor condition. The stick is turning over at the joint between the bamboo and the Pernambuco. Frog fair with uncracked to some thumb projection audience side. So it needs a lot of issues, but if you are a bow maker or restorer, then you might be able to get this back going again. Maybe you could get it for a good deal. A German golden tortoiseshell mounted violin bow, 2 to 400. Head broken off and then pinned and bound behind head. Frog with considerable damage from insects. Okay, interesting, yeah. They do quite like the tortoiseshells sometimes. Another Finkel there. I think we're going to have to speed up. This is interesting. French silver mounted violin bow, School of Lupo, 3 to 5. Stick very good. Head with filleted cheek, filling halter mortise. Frog good. Okay. A few more bows. Interesting Knop family bow with interesting inlay. It's quite a curious bit of varnish where they're on that bow. Okay. Load of bows. I think we can just skip past those for now. Well, we still have about 380 lots. So, Italian violin by a member of the Carletti family, Pieve d'Acento, 1963. 4 to 6 on that. That's definitely interesting. An Irish violin by William Wilkinson, Dublin, circa 1830. 2 to 4. With inked purfling there. I think that's quite nice. 1800. I quite like the neck, probably original. Do like some of these, either Perry and Wilkinson or the Perry or Wilkinson on their own. That work is quite interesting. Good violin, probably by a member of the Hop family, circa 1800. 2 to 3. That seems a bit high, maybe. A violin, probably Paris, circa 1770. $350. That's fairly smallish. Let's see. An Italian violin by Luigi Agostinelli, Milan, 1962. Cool scroll. I like that. Have we seen this before? Later table sold. Yeah, I feel like we've seen this before. 1300 on that so far. Yeah, I feel like this has been in one of the previous auctions. More English violins here. Let's carry on. English violin by John Ferber, London, 1813, 4 to 6. I do like a good Ferber family instrument. Interesting purfling on some of these Ferber instruments. Nice back. I quite like that. Let's carry on. Another English violin there. Skipping out some of the stuff which I think is not so exciting. Coley there again. A violin, probably Vienna, circa 1770. 2 to 4. $350 back. Waist looks a little bit pinched on that violin. A violin circa 1850 after Maggini, 1500 to 2000, 1200 bid. This has some real charm. Scroll by another hand, probably earlier. Interesting. It's usually, it says later rather than earlier, so that's a curious one. And the English instrument there. And another one. Yeah, lots of them in this auction, and another. They are nice. I just think for time wise we'll skip past that. More kind of stuff here. We've just got so many instruments to look at. An interesting violin circa 1790, 1200 to 1800. There's the estimate. Kind of, once again, looks a bit narrow waist, but maybe it's the F-hole placement. Curious colour to the varnish. Post cracking back, so that's a bit problematic. German violin, possibly by a member of the Klotz family, Mitterwald, circa 1760. Looks like it might have a post crack in the back, in the back, but it's patched, so if you don't pay too much for it, it's not too bad. Let's skip past a few of these again. A composite Italian violin, possibly Naples. Estimates 3 to 5, 2.6 to start. Later Italian back and scroll. Interesting. I quite like this actually, I have to say. I think 2.6 isn't too bad. I mean, if it sounds good, why not? Good violin, first half of the 18th century, 2 to 4. Yeah, looks nice enough. 356. English violin by Woodward, Birmingham, circa 1820. Later scroll. Once again, that's quite a nice violin. The English violin there. English violin School of Bet, 600 to 1000. Repaired to tables and ribs. Soundpost crack in table. Okay. Another English violin there. A violin of guitar outline, possibly first half of the 19th century, 1000 to 1500. No bids on that. I don't know how popular these kind of violins are. 262, it's quite long as well. A violin, 500 to 800. It's got a bid on it, 400. I think it has some charm. I quite like it. An Italian violin by Luigi Ocello, Milan, circa 1950. 262, it's fairly long back. Another English violin, Newark style. Yeah, lots of English violins in this sale. Another one there. German violin attributed to Paulus Alessi, Munich, 1722. Yeah, quite nice back there. Let's actually have a look at that. I think we've seen this one before, an Italian violin by Domenico Tomasini, Viterbo 1950. Curious looking thing. Nice back. A violin, 2 to 3,000 there. Violin circa 1800, 1000 to 1500, labelled Tommaso Carcassi, Firenze. No, I don't mind that one either. Interesting violin, probably first quarter of the 20th century, 600 to 800, sorry. 550 bid. Don't like the back on that, but otherwise getting closer towards the end here. More modern stuff here. Okay. A violin, 2 to 4,000, current bid 2,000. Wow, that is a cool scroll. Really interesting F-hole placement and general outline. A little bit crazy. You can see that the arching is probably really high in the centre there. You can kind of see the lines of it. Same with the top. Curious looking thing, 358. Yeah, quite like the scroll on that. It's pretty good. Violin attributed to and probably by Andreas Johann Schiele, circa 1760. Okay. Violin circa 1900. An English violin by Michael Taylor, London, labelled Ealing Strings Londinium, made by Michael Taylor, bowmaker. This, I think, of all of the English violins, of the modern ones, especially the Ealing Strings, I think this is actually quite nicely made. Having a look at this, had a bit of a problem with the varnish. Some nice pin details there. General, the workmanship and the choice of wood, I think, is quite nice. I think it's better than some of the other English violins that are in this auction, so I think that one's quite nice. More modern. This one seems quite popular. An English violin, School of Panorama, London, circa 1810, 2 to 4. Quite like it. This violin once belonged to the late Lord Nelson. Okay, interesting. Unfortunate repair there at the back. 354 length at the back. This violin has historically thought to have been owned by Lord Admiral Nelson. Okay, well, that's gonna be popular for someone. A Nelson enthusiast might buy that. Interesting violin, German, circa 1850. Scottish violin here. I do like the Scottish violins. A bit confused by these. Oh, sold with 3 additional violins by the same maker. Ah, okay, that's interesting. So you get 3 Scottish violins for the price of 1. That's pretty good. Pretty good deal. English violins, circa 1790, 5 to 800 there, starting with 450. I think this is alright. I think it's got some charm. An interesting back on that. Yeah, I quite like that. And that's a nice enough violin. We're definitely getting towards the end now, I think. Practice violin there, that's interesting. This I thought was quite interesting violin. A violin probably German, labelled Giuseppe Pedrezzini. Length of back 357. But look at that scroll. That's a really cool, interesting scroll. And just in general, some of the varnish and the workmanship, I think it's yeah, I think that's a curious violin, that one. I think it will do well. It's already 850, it's already over estimate. I quite like this. I really do like that scroll, actually. Really nice scroll on that, if nothing else. And that's it, I think. Yeah, we're done. That is the Brompton sale, we went over that pretty quickly. We did miss out a load of stuff, unfortunately. It's just the way that it is. We can't look at everything, but yeah, a good sale, like quite an interesting sale. I think if you take your time to go through it, you might find some interesting stuff for sure. So yeah, I'll put a link in the description, go through it, see what you think. And yeah, happy bidding. Like I said, this auction finishes tomorrow, so you don't have much time, but have a look and see what you think. So thanks a lot for watching the video, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.